just be me. Welcome to the February P3PD on wellness. Help me get us started, everyone, by taking a couple deep breaths and thinking here on the inhale, now on the exhale. Do a couple more of those. I know I'm going to. I'm so excited to cover wellness today. Some people, some campuses are now calling it well-being. I use those terms interchangeably. For me, purple shirt. Renee likes my purple shirt. For me, the term wellness came about 25 years ago. It was when I was doing an internship at Owens Corning Fiber in Owens Corning Fiberglass, it used to be called. And I worked in their employee assistance program. And the idea was that wellness was this term that was starting to be banting about on college campuses and in businesses to help us recognize that health is more than just not being sick. That in addition to different states of illness, we were trying to help people manage and hopefully reduce their illness. In addition to not being sick, there's all these positive states of wellness. And I really learned and picked up a lot. And I had my second year internship in grad school was coordinating the Student Wellness Center, which was located in the campus recreation center, but was definitely about more than just nutrition and exercise. It was about really looking at the whole person. So I spent the summer learning about wellness on my internship and landed in August to get ready to start my second year internship. And a few days before I was officially supposed to start, the phone rang and I answered it. And I can still picture it on the desk like it was yesterday, the old-fashioned kind. Oh. And it was the University of Toledo working on their last-minute RA training for the resident assistants, and they were wanting to do a program on wellness. And they asked if that was something I could do, and if so, how much it would cost. And I said, yes, it's absolutely something I can do. And two, I have no idea what it would cost. I need to think about it. And I hung up the phone, freaked out that someone wanted to pay me to present. And I ended up within an hour tracking down the phone number of the director of housing at Illinois State, who had been my in-service teacher when I had been an RA a few years earlier, and was one of the people that told me there was a graduate degree I can get where I could be an RA for my whole life. And I called him. He happened to be available, which is crazy in August for people working in housing. And he says, Paul, what do you need? What's going on? And I said, somebody wants me to be the in-service speaker for RAs. What do I charge? And he said, Paul, never leave your campus for less than $500. And I was like, Floyd, I make $300 a month in my internship. I can't charge $500. He goes, never leave your campus for less than $500. And I called him back and they said, that sounds great. August, we set the date for just a couple weeks. And I gave my first paid presentation. And this is the handout that I dug out of my files today. Well, now, an invitation to excellence. And it explored the content of wellness. And as I look through this handout, the kind of outline is very similar to what we're going to explore, but the information has been updated. And as early as last year, I was hanging out with folks at Xavier University and also, or no, not Xavier. I got some information from Xavier, Rowan University in New Jersey. And then these were among my last presentations before COVID started, and also Oakland University up the road in Michigan, and ended up sharing some of this information with them. So what we're going to explore is two different models of wellness or well-being. One that I developed a few years ago for a campus recreation NERSA program I was doing, and we're going to explore that secondly. The first content I actually stumbled upon when I was preparing to give a talk for Rowan University's employees. And they had just launched a wellness program that had defined, and one of the common things about wellness programs is you will see people have different dimensions of wellness. So they'll break down so that we're not, to just really reinforce the idea, we're not just looking at exercise and nutrition, those are components, but let's look at a holistic approach. And everyone uses a slightly different model. And what I love about whoever's model is they've put some time and energy into it. So as I was prepping to talk about well-being with this group, they said, here's our new Thrive model that we're just releasing. Can you incorporate it? So I made a quick assessment using their model. And I've actually tweaked it to include some things because a few weeks after I got back from them, right here in Cincinnati, Xavier University opened their new well-being center that included their campus rec program. And I went over and etched into the marble columns are their 8 pillars of well-being. And so I kind of overlapped the two and combined them to this. And we're going to take a very quick assessment. If you have a piece of paper, it might be helpful to jot a couple things down. But know that I'm going to give you a slide that has all of the information you're about to get. So you're really only going to want to write down these words when you see them. Let me go to screen share. Boop. Here's me. Haven't done screen share in a while. Hear myself doing the boop sound, which everyone was teasing me about when I first was Zooming. I could go boop, 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 and I had to do that. Now let's see if this comes up right. Sometimes it needs me to switch. Are you seeing one image or 2 images? Give me your fingers so I can see. Yes, good. Sometimes it reverses which screen it's on. So this specifically, this content is largely from Rowan University's Thrive program. I did tweak a couple of the slides and we added 2 at the end that are from Xavier's wellness model. The Thrive model at Rowan uses 6 things: physical, social, emotional, community, purpose, and financial. I'm going to be going through these right now, and I'm just going to read you a simple definition. And I'm going to ask you at this point in your life right now today, if you were going to give yourself a score, 1 being low, 10 being high, how do you feel you are at knowing and actually implementing this kind of well-being? And so if you're still scribbling these out down, please know I'm going to put this list up at the end. Physical health, physical well-being is defined as having good health and the energy to get things done on a daily basis. So if right now we were asking you to rate your physical well-being, having good health and the energy to get things done on a daily basis, just jot down a score, scale of 1 to 10. Social, the sense of belonging and connection to others. What kind of score do you feel you have right now? And it's interesting because I haven't presented this in the time of COVIDia. So it's interesting to think about how this can be challenged by the fact that we can't necessarily get together without extra effort. Love this image. You know, one of my brand pieces is using animals in my slides. And I found this image and I was like, oh, I can't wait to find a use for it. And I was thrilled last year to say, I finally know how I can use this image. Emotional well-being, the ability to cope with and learn from life's ups and downs, and to understand that struggle is necessary for growth. Go ahead and give yourself a score. Community is the ability to relate and connect with others, to contribute to the common good through service, and promote an environment of empathy and civility and respect. That's a lot packed in there, but how would you say you're doing right now at the ability to relate and connect with others, contribute to the common good, and promote an environment that includes empathy, civility, and respect? For me, I went right to thinking about my social media engagement and how that goes. Purpose, finding motivation, meaning, and enjoyment in life. So those are 3 kind of separate things you could score separately, but overall today in your life, how would you say those are going for you as a whole? And just a couple more to zip through here. Financial, the ability to manage the money you have and understand how to spend it in a responsible way. Intellectual, I love this little snail with the antennas out. Utilizing critical thinking skills, cultivating curiosity, and practicing lifelong learning. Give yourself a score, a scale of 1 to 10. And then spiritual is something that is included. Wait a second. Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry, that's a lot of back and forth. Intellectual was added. That was not included in the model. And then this spiritual was also not included in Rowan's model, but in Xavier. Spiritual is finding deeper meaning, inner peace, and feeling connected to something beyond the individual self. I had it in my mind that I was going to remember to say that intellectual is added on, and then I thought, oh, I forgot that slide. It didn't pop up. So this slide kind of breaks good PowerPoint rules as far as having lots and lots of content. And I want you to know that when we jump into the breakout rooms, I'm going to give you this image in your browser so that you can refer to it if you'd like. Basically, what I did is I put all of the items and their descriptions in the same place. And what I have people do when I'm in the room presenting is I put that up there and I ask them to circle the 1 or 2 that they would say are their strengths, that they feel most comfortable with right now, and then put an asterisk by 1 or 2 that they're really struggling with. And if we were all together in a presentation, or if we were doing a 1-hour content delivery the way I often do with these, I'd actually put you in breakout rooms right now with the instruction to share which are your strengths and how did you develop them. Was it somebody suggested it? Did you reach out? Was it a natural talent that just came really easily? And then to talk about which do you struggle with and why? How could you improve? What we're going to do today, since we're on an abbreviated time frame, is I'm going to give you both sets of content and share a couple wrap up things. And then we'll actually be turning off the recording and I'm going to put you back in breakout rooms for just a little bit for you all to actually process these. And I'll put both of these, I'll put both of those slides, this one and the next set up there before we do that. And actually, why don't I was going to take a break and share something else with you, but why don't I get my screen stuff out of the way and then we can go back to just Uncle Paul and you all. So the other model, so this model is what I put together after doing a whole bunch of research in 2016 and I believe 2017 as I was preparing to give a talk at NIRSA, National Intramural Recreational Sports Association. They have me speak at their national conference frequently. And I like to, for them, especially because they've seen a lot of my content, to commit to bringing fresh content. So they had me keynote, give the closing keynote the year before. And I said, I'm sure you're gonna need to take a break from having me. Well, then the next year they were like, no, we really want you back. And I said, well, then I promise if I come back, I'll brand new 2 sessions. So what I did is I read a whole bunch of what was out there in terms of how Martin Seligman and the positive psychology folks, Tom Rath over at the Gallup organization had done tons of research with, if you think of Gallup and all the data they collect and all the research they do, both of those organizations were spending a lot of time and energy thinking about this overall health, wellness, health and well-being. And then there were 2 other models I looked at that were extensive and based on research of how to move towards a meaningful, full life. And they all looked at things a little differently and had different modules. And what I came up with, instead of these ideas of looking at different areas that were pretty health related, is to look largely at behaviors that contribute to a meaningful and or successful life. And I came up with these 5 things: bounce, connect, focus, savor, optimize. And each of these terms I will define in just the shortest phrase possible on each of these slides. And then I'm going to identify two specific sub areas that I'm getting at when I talk about this. So bouncing, our ability to respond to challenges and changes, really comes down to two skill sets: resilience and grit. Resilience being your ability with setbacks, with things that happen, for say, okay, this is going to knock me down for a while. It's going to cost sometimes some energy, maybe physical stuff is going on. And then my ability to either get back to the normal rate of functioning, creating a new normal if there's permanent changes going on, and possibly being able to even get back into thriving mode where we're in growth and kick butt. Grit is a psychological trait, a coin termed by Angela Duckworth with some really phenomenal research behind it. And it's the ability to keep on going despite encountering obstacles. And it's become a better predictor of success in college than grades or standardized test scores. It's helped the military as a better predictor of success in stressful conditions. And it's basically your ability to keep on going. So my question for you in our abbreviated time today is, if I ask you to think about your ability to bounce, getting back to normal after difficulty happens, to persist through difficulty, and I was going to again ask you to give yourself a score today. It might change tomorrow. It might be different a month from now. But for right now, write down the word bounce and give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 10. Connecting is your ability to cultivate relationships. And where I went with this, again, based on the research and based on how I was trying to create a model that was as holistic as possible, I went with calling connecting, cultivating relationships that had an external component, your ability to connect with others, and then an internal component, your ability to, excuse me, to connect with yourself. And in the longer version of this presentation, I certainly talked about some of the networking relationship aspects that come with connecting with people, with other people. And then I actually talked a little bit about the movie Inside Out, and which was big and popular at the time I first created this content, to talk about getting to know our inner selves, connecting with Inside Out to different emotions. A lot of you have heard me talking about thinking of ourselves as an internal system, an internal collection of selves, that we notice that certain situations seem to bring out certain parts of us, and our ability to get to know those parts and build mutual trust and relationship, much like we think of our capacity at connecting with others externally, and and deal with conflict both internally and externally, and those kinds of things. So knowing that that's brief, and knowing that for most of us, there's probably two different scores in terms of connecting with ourselves and connecting with others. If I ask you to think in general about your capacity to connect with others and yourself right now in your life, what would you give yourself in terms of a score on a scale of 1 to 10? There we go. I just figured out a way that I can make sure I see more people. I'm watching a couple of you, but I want to see all of you. Then we get to go to focus, which is exactly what I need to do so that we can stay on time and focus. Attending to priorities. And the two things that I've got here are discipline and direction. Discipline is the ability for you to set something that you know that needs to get done, getting to the things that you need to do rather than just the things that you want to do. And direction is having a sense of where you're trying to get to with the project, with your job, with your life, with a relationship. Um, and and again, I think discipline and direction are related. All the discipline in the world isn't going to get you anywhere if you don't know where you're going. And really being able to have a well-defined direction, but not having the discipline to keep yourself on the path and getting there, and recognizing when you're not on the path. These come hand in hand. Again, it might be better for some of you to think about these as maybe having 2 on a scale of 1 to 5 on each of these and combine those scores. But in general, I think it's useful here in our brief time together to ask you, where are you at with focus in your life right now? Your ability to have both discipline and direction so that you can attend to priorities. Give yourself a score. And then it's time for savoring. And I've combined valuing the present into having 2 components. Mindfulness, the ability to actually be present. Here now, here now, here now. Knowing that we can find our center, knowing that it is inevitable that we will get knocked off our center, and being able to come back to our center without judgment, and eventually being able to linger in our center for not days, not hours, but at least minutes. And then gratitude, our ability to be thankful for what we have, for what we see as, in addition to being aware of what we're lacking or what we're shooting for that's out there in the future. Where are you at today in terms of your ability to savor, to value the present with mindfulness and gratitude? Give yourself a score, 1 to 10. Optimizing. This was complicated. This, I was trying to pack a lot in that was left over when I was looking at my model. And what I ended up doing is coming up with a category that I called optimizing, leveraging your assets. And I've tweaked this slide just today because as I've been thinking about this, I wasn't satisfied with the first concept. And I'm calling it, I used to call it energy. I changed the name for you all to vitality so that it could be something that includes things like energy, but your overall physical, emotional, spiritual health, your zest for living, perhaps. And then the other piece of this is a very different concept, and it's the idea of optimizing the resources that you have available to you. So, you're asking for help, learning about things in blogs and books or podcasts, and not just knowing they're out there, but actually optimizing your use of them, leveraging the asset of knowledge. And again, those are fairly different things, but if I ask you to think in a big picture sort of way, your ability to optimize, to leverage the assets you have, both your personal vitality, your health, your emotional health, your physical health, your well-being, and then the resources that you have available to you, whether it is, a library card to all the resources that you might have to learn and grow. Give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we come back to a similar concept. We have a second well-being model here that I'm presenting. I don't usually present both of these together. One of my questions in the eval is going to be, did one of these really stand out as a lot useful? They do 2 different things. I'd have to rename them to present them simultaneously on a regular basis, but I think there's room for them both. But I'm also curious to have you tell me, is one of these really more useful for you? But for right now, with this set of these different dimensions of the well-being model, which of these are strongest for you naturally? Can you circle maybe 1, maybe 2 that you say, these are my strong points in this model? And then do the same thing to put an asterisk by 1 or 2 that you're struggling with either lately or if you worked on it could help you be more effective. And I'll close out, I'll stop our share here so that we can get back to Uncle Paul. And as we wrap up our time of just pure content, before I'm going to turn off the recording, give you a little bit of, if you're sticking around, a little bit of group processing time to talk about this, and then we'll come back in the big room and see what questions or comments we can do. But what I want to do, first we do that, is everyone in meeting. I want to give you links And for folks who are watching this on the tape, I am pretty sure I will remember to put these links in the YouTube description, and also the in the Patreon post that I put up. I'll put them there too. But if you don't see them there, just message me and I'll get on that right away. And actually, you know what I'm going to do right now for folks, for anyone who's going to have to leave in the next couple moments, I'm also going to slip the eval. And let me tell you, I've changed the eval. I've slimmed it down a little bit. I've made it so that it's really quick, same kind of questions. Ooh, I want to know what's working, what's not. So if you have to dash, use that eval. But what I want to do in wrapping this up is the concepts is not this is what you have to do to be healthy. If I ask you all just to take a breath right now, if you are able to breathe, you have health, you have wellness, you have well-being. And this idea of we tend to think in terms of health and healthiness as if I asked you to, what's a list of things that would make you healthy? We tend to think of things that we don't yet have. This would help me. That's about being more well. That's about being more whole, having more vitality, more health. You have health today. If you are alive, you have some health. And to operate from that place of saying, here's what I have, here's what I'm grateful for, here's what I can savor. And I would like to be healthier. I would like to have a more positive state of health and well-being than I do today. And what these two are designed to do is to give you a place to jump to do that. And for those who are watching on tape, I'm going to stop our tape and encourage you to take a look at the links and discuss with yourself, share with someone, what are your strengths, how did you get there, and what you would like to work on. And definitely please take a moment to complete the eval, which I'll have in the links as well.